They said humans were only good at sports. Then he dismantled an empire. The alien academy towered beneath twin suns, its crystalline spires gleaming like glass spears thrust into an amber sky. Students from 100 worlds floated, crawled, or glided through the great halls, a living mural of the galaxy's most gifted species. In the midst of it all walked Aaron, the only human ever admitted. His cracked leather backpack, patched and weathered from Earth, looked pitiful beside the sleek hover cases and luminous satchels carried by his peers. They often laughed, not cruelly at first, but with the easy condescension of those who thought they were entertaining an amusing experiment. Humans are better at chasing balls than studying strategy, an insectoid once clicked as Aaron passed. Others flicked their tendrils and exchanged Earth slang like toys, unaware he understood every word. Aaron kept his head down. He studied long after the Academy's halls dimmed, working in simulator pods that overheated beneath his touch. He failed more tests than he passed. His avatars were obliterated in every combat scenario. Instructors scrawled alien glyphs across his reports, meaning illogical or simplistic. Yet Aaron endured. The Alien Academy was more than a school. It was a forge for power. Every empire sent its brightest youth here to learn warfare, governance, and galactic science. Graduates didn't just earn titles. They inherited fleets and thrones. Aaron's admission had been hailed as a gesture of inclusion, a magnanimous experiment by the galactic elite toward the primitive planet called Earth. He knew better. It wasn't generosity, it was arrogance. They wanted a human there to prove how far below them Earth truly stood. That illusion shattered the day the enemy fleet attacked. Sirens howled across the spires. Sky-splitting beams cut through clouds as dark warships descended like knives. The Academy became a battlefield in minutes. Elite cadets scrambled to form defensive lines, their perfect drills collapsing under real fire. Aaron watched as chaos tore through the halls. Plasma blasts disintegrated lecture domes. Students screamed for instructors who had already fled. He could have hidden, many did, but something burned in his chest. He sprinted to the restricted archives, a place he had secretly studied for months, memorizing fragments of alien war doctrine and noting the blind spots their pride refused to see. With the walls shaking, he ripped open an access panel, splicing wires with bleeding fingers, and linked his battered Earth tablet to the security grid. The system mocked him in shimmering alien script, laughing at his primitive code. But Aaron had spent years preparing for this moment. He didn't think like them. Where aliens worshiped precision and ritual, he thrived in chaos. Where they relied on brute strength, he saw waste. He rewrote the defense drones' protocols, forcing them into unpredictable scatter maneuvers. He redirected fleet beacons so enemy ships locked onto their own allies. The entire network convulsed under his hands as he turned their rigid perfection against itself. Outside, the battle flipped. The Academy's defenses, once thought unbreakable, now tore through the invaders. Alien cadets stared in disbelief as their polished doctrines crumbled. "He's improvising!" a reptilian shouted. "That's not even possible." Aaron ignored them. His eyes blazed with focus as he pulled order from chaos, weaving patterns no alien strategist could have conceived. By the time the skies cleared, the Academy still stood, scarred but alive. Students and instructors crawled from the rubble to find Aaron standing amid the shattered library, his cracked tablet glowing faintly in the dust. He hadn't just saved them. He'd dismantled the foundation of their entire military logic. Whispers spread quickly. Some said he cheated. Others called it luck. But the dangerous ones, the ones whispered in command chambers, spoke the truth. A single human had found the flaws in their empire's bones. Months later, at the graduation ceremony held in a hall rebuilt from ash, Aaron crossed the stage wearing the same patched backpack. The diploma shimmered with alien glyphs as he accepted it with a quiet nod. No one noticed the small data drive hidden inside his tablet, containing every archive he'd ever accessed. As applause thundered through the chamber, Aaron's gaze swept over the rows of alien leaders who had come to witness this historic moment. He smiled, a calm, knowing smile, because he understood what they didn't. Saving the Academy was only the beginning. He had seen their weaknesses, their brittle pride, their blind faith in systems that shattered when struck from the side. And soon when the time came, Aaron wouldn't just be the human who passed their tests. He would be the one who erased their empire. The council chamber was a dome of crystalline light, designed to inspire awe in every species who entered. Yet when Aaron stood in its center, he felt none of the intended reverence. Alien dignitaries whispered in their layered voices, tendrils coiling and eyes blinking in strange patterns, all directed at him, the human graduate who had embarrassed an empire by surviving. He had been summoned as both hero and suspect, questioned about how he had turned their own defenses against the invading fleet. They demanded explanations wrapped in ritual courtesy, but Aaron's answers were sharp, practical, and brutally simple. You relied on repetition. I relied on improvisation. Your doctrine is a cage. I stepped outside it, the chamber murmured, scandal rippling like a storm through its walls. The dignitaries did not admit it openly, but Aaron had confirmed what they feared. Their superiority was vulnerable. Weeks later, he found himself not in a classroom, but in a war council simulation, invited or perhaps baited to prove himself again. Alien cadets circled him with sneering confidence, each commanding holographic fleets of glittering ships. The test was meant to show his first victory had been luck. But Aaron's fingers skimmed his old Earth tablet, its cracked screen reflecting his steady gaze. He disrupted the enemy's supply lines in the simulation, not by brute force, but by cutting one unnoticed relay, a single overlooked node that caused a cascade of collapse. Alien classmates howled in frustration as their perfect formations crumbled into chaos. You cannot do that, barked a scaled instructor, claws scraping the control platform. Aaron tilted his head. Why not? In reality, do you think your enemies will politely follow your rules? The silence that followed was heavier than any applause. Yet while his skills spread like fire through whispers in the academy, resentment grew with equal speed. Some alien students avoided him, as though speaking to him might infect them with dangerous thoughts. Others challenged him in hallways, hissing that humans were scavengers, parasites, destroyers of order. Aaron endured it all, keeping his head down, but he felt the weight of every gaze. They wanted to believe his victories were anomalies. They wanted him gone. Then came the second attack. This time it was no band of raiders. It was the Empire's own splinter faction, those who saw the Academy as a decadent waste and sought to overthrow its leadership. They arrived in sleek warships marked with crimson sigils, dropping soldiers onto the campus in waves. Explosions shook towers, fire spilled into courtyards, and alien students once again screamed for guidance. But this time Aaron was ready. He sprinted not to the archives but to the armory, where discarded prototypes lay buried under dust. Weapons half-tested, drones abandoned due to inelegant design flaws, combat suits too unstable for dignified species to risk wearing. Aaron strapped one on without hesitation, the alien armor oversized and clumsy, but his earthborn instincts adapted with every motion. He reprogrammed drones with blunt commands, stripping away ceremonial layers of code until they responded with raw efficiency. Alien cadets gawked as he led the countercharge, weaving through collapsing halls, directing fire with improvised signals. "Why follow him?" one shouted. "He isn't even one of us." But when Aaron's hacked drones cut down the attackers with ruthless precision, the same cadet fell in step beside him. The battle raged through the night cycle until finally the Crimson Sigil faction retreated, leaving wreckage smoldering in the Twin Suns' dawn. The Academy was battered, but once again it stood, and once again Aaron had been the difference. That day marked a shift. Whispers no longer dismissed him. Now they debated him. Some called him dangerous. Others called him genius. A few, mostly the younger cadets, looked at him with open admiration. Instructors muttered about unpredictability, about the human way of war being too chaotic, too unsustainable. But Aaron knew the truth. Chaos was survival. Humanity had always thrived in the cracks between order and disaster. He saw in their carefully arranged hierarchies the same weakness that had toppled countless empires in Earth's history. He saw patterns repeating themselves, blind to the warning signs. And he began to wonder, Perhaps he had not come to the academy to learn it all. Perhaps he had come to end it. Yet he did not move openly. He continued his studies, continued his exercises, endured the glares and mutters. At night, he combed through his stolen archives, piecing together the empire's full structure, its fleets, its supply chains, its political alliances. Every alien doctrine was a lattice, interconnected and brittle. All it would take was pressure in the right place, a single push to turn the lattice into rubble. When a delegation from the Central Empire visited months later, Aaron stood among rows of cadets saluting with precision gestures he refused to mimic. The dignitaries did not see a human student. They saw a seed of rebellion they had accidentally planted. One alien elder leaned close to another and hissed, "We should have never allowed him to stay." Aaron caught the words. He smiled faintly, knowing they were already too late, because humanity had been underestimated too many times before, and every time the underestimation ended the same way. He had no army, no fleet, no power beyond his mind and his cracked tablet. But he had something far more dangerous than they realized: perspective. The academy was supposed to shape him into a symbol of alien superiority. Instead, it had given him everything he needed to dismantle the empire itself. And deep within his mind, a single thought burned brighter than any sun. They had trained their own undoing. Aaron had no need for grand weapons or fleets. He had knowledge of their systems, their weaknesses, their assumptions. He knew how they thought, how they planned, and how they refused to adapt. The more they refined their perfect machines, the more predictable they became. The more order they enforced, the more fragile that order grew. Humanity had always evolved in chaos, adapting faster than any empire could comprehend. And as Aaron watched the alien delegates leave the hall, their robes shimmering like threads of arrogance, he knew his time was nearing. Soon the universe would remember what it had forgotten, that even the smallest species, given enough pressure, could break the stars themselves. The empire had grown complacent. Its fleets spread across the stars like a glittering net. Its academies drilled students in the same polished maneuvers. Its governors repeated the same speeches written centuries ago. In their eyes, order was perfection. In Aaron's eyes, order was fragility. He waited in silence as months turned into years, studying, blending in, hiding his intent behind the mask of an obedient graduate. He attended councils where aliens debated endlessly over ritual details while ignoring the unrest rising at the empire's edges. He listened, he watched, and he mapped every flaw into the cracked tablet he still carried, now filled with stolen archives, secret codes, and his own notes in Earth's plain script. To the aliens, it looked like a relic of a primitive world. In truth, it was his weapon. The moment came sooner than he expected. A crisis flared in the outer sectors. Rebellion among conquered colonies, pirate fleets rising, rival empires probing borders. The Central Empire, arrogant and overstretched, called on its academies to provide new leaders. Aaron was assigned command of a small observation unit, a token gesture meant to prove inclusivity. In reality, it was an attempt to sideline him, to send him far enough from the capital to be forgotten. They did not understand that obscurity was exactly what he needed. On the frontier, he saw the truth the council halls refused to acknowledge. The empire's citizens were tired, fearful, burdened by endless taxes and rigid hierarchies. Its fleets, vast but inflexible, moved slowly and predictably. Its governors relied on ceremonies more than solutions. Aaron walked among the colonies as a stranger who did not carry the weight of old grudges. People spoke to him, whispered frustrations, shared secrets. He listened to all of it, storing every detail in his tablet. He realized then that he did not need to fight the empire ship by ship. He needed only to show the galaxy that it could fall. The chance arrived when he was ordered to suppress a rebellion on a mining moon. Alien commanders argued for overwhelming bombardment, a show of strength to scare others into obedience. Aaron argued otherwise. Strike them, and you prove you are tyrants. Let me speak to them, and I will prove you are weak. They laughed and dismissed him, so he acted without permission. He walked into the rebel camp alone, carrying no weapon but his backpack. He told them the truth. The empire was brittle, bound by arrogance, and he could give them the knowledge to shatter it. He showed them the files, the weaknesses in fleet patrols, the flaws in communication relays. He offered not conquest, but freedom. The rebels followed him. Word spread. Colony after colony began to see the human not as a tool of the empire, but as its undoing. Aaron did not raise armies in the traditional sense. He raised ideas. He taught rebels to fight not like the empire, but like humans, unpredictably, creatively, relentlessly. Sabotage replaced set battles. Misinformation spread through the empire's rigid networks, sowing chaos. Fleets sent to crush uprisings found themselves chasing phantoms, striking empty space while their supply lines collapsed. And behind it all, Aaron orchestrated everything from the shadows, his cracked tablet glowing like a torch in the dark. The council declared him a traitor. They sent assassins, fleets, even entire academies worth of students trained to hunt him. Each time he slipped through their grasp, turning their own systems against them. At last, the Empire tried one final gambit. They summoned their greatest champion, a warrior bred from birth to embody their doctrine, to confront Aaron in a battle broadcast across the stars. The aliens expected a duel of might and spectacle. Aaron offered none of that. He stood calmly, empty-handed, and spoke into the broadcast feeds. You built an empire on the belief that you could not be defeated. I am human. My species survived because we never believed in the impossible. We only believed in trying again, in learning, in adapting. That is why I am standing here and why your empire will fall. Then, while their eyes were fixed on the duel that never began, his allies triggered the plan he had built for years. Communications collapsed. Supply chains shattered. Systems long ignored by the empire erupted in rebellion at once, coordinated by the data he had seeded among them. The empire's fleets, massive and orderly, found themselves blind and broken, trapped in patterns Aaron had already predicted. In days, what had lasted millennia crumbled. The empire dissolved not in a blaze of glory, but in a storm of confusion. Aaron stood at the center, not as a conqueror, but as the one who had revealed the truth, that the strongest empire can fall to a single person willing to think differently. When the dust settled, he returned to Earth. He stepped onto the soil of his homeworld, carrying nothing more than his backpack and his cracked tablet. He was no longer a student of an alien academy, no longer an outsider mocked by his peers. He was a graduate in the truest sense, not of their doctrines, but of survival, creativity, and resilience. And in the silence of his homecoming, he knew he had proven something greater than victory in war. He had proven that humanity, underestimated and overlooked, had a place among the stars that no empire could erase. The galaxy remembered him not as the boy who failed tests or the odd human in an alien school. They remembered him as the one who erased an empire with nothing but knowledge, courage, and the unshakable refusal to accept defeat. And that was how Aaron, the human who carried a broken tablet and wore a battered backpack, graduated from an academy meant to humble him, and instead made his species unforgettable. Did you like today's story? Then catch our posts at 3 p.m. Eastern Time daily. Unfold more intergalactic stories with Professor Space.